Mini traditionally has been a brand who makes just that. Minis, tiny little cars that seat four in relative discomfort, with an engine so tiny it'll run on the smell of an oily rag. But one of the most commendable things about Mini is that, even though they have introduced much larger cars to their model lineup like the Countryman, after a whopping 65 years, they still make the tiny little two-door Mini Cooper hatchback. However, they now technically make two different two-door Mini Coopers, because while the Butter Chicken Cooper C, the Tikka Masala Cooper S and Vindaloo JCW models remain, you can now have your two-door Mini Cooper in British-built petrol form, which is basically just a heavily revised version of the predecessor, or you can have an all-new Chinese-built electric one. The petrol ones use four-cylinder turbocharged engines borrowed from BMW, making 115, 150 and 170 kilowatt respectively, whereas the EV ones use electric motors developed in a partnership with Great Wall Motors in China, paired up with a 40 kilowatt hour battery pack and a 135 kilowatt motor in the base model, a 55 kilowatt hour battery pack and 170 kilowatt motor in the Cooper S, and a 190 kilowatt motor in the pumped up JCW model. Which means, given this is meant to be a hot hatch after all, it's rather fast. It does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in under 6 seconds, and of course, because it's electric, that power comes on absolutely instantly. But the best part about the performance in my mind is that the whole car feels like it was designed for this level of power, because it's really easy to make a truckload of power from an electric motor and just put it in any old car. Particularly the Chinese and Korean EVs, I must say, they're just an absolute mess to drive because the chassis was only designed for a crummy little 1.5 turbo or something. This though applies the immense grunt to the front wheels predictably and smoothly, and the traction control does a great job at keeping the front end in check. It even simulates a limited slip diff on corner exit where you can put your foot down and this thing just hauls you out of corners like a front wheel drive limited slip differential car. And because the batteries are mounted really low down in the chassis and the suspension is unspeakably stiff, the handling of this car is absolutely remarkable. Thus far, I have not found a corner where you can't just turn the wheel and have the car just bang, go around it like that. It's absolutely face bending through the corners, which comes as a bit of a surprise, frankly, because this car is not a lightweight car. It's nearly 1.8 tons thanks to all of those batteries down the bottom, and it's only got 225 wide eco tires on it. But somehow they've done a remarkable job of making this rather heavy car remarkably fast in a straight line and just supremely nimble through the corners. It fundamentally still feels like a zippy little Mini. It's great. And that brings us on to the drive modes. Even though most of the functions you do have to use the screen for, at least they've kept the physical controls down here for the demisters and camera system, the volume knob, the power switch, and the gear selector. But they also have an experiences toggle. The bottom drive mode is balance, which plays nice Chinese Zen music as you drive along. Then you have timeless mode, which makes the gauge cluster look like an old Omega watch, and it plays jet engine noise when you put your foot down. Vivid mode fortunately turns off all of the silly electric noise that gets piped through the speakers, so you can just enjoy a ordinary EV experience. And at this point you can turn on the excellent adaptive cruise and lane keep assist system, which pretty much drives most of the car for you. If you go up a couple more, you've got green mode, which has a little flapping bird to let you know that you're saving the planet with your nice efficient driving, but put your foot down and then you get a high consumption cheetah. And then finally you have go-kart mode. It sounds like they got somebody from the factory in Oxfordshire to shout Yahoo in a Mario Kart style down a microphone for the little soundbite when you enter the drive mode. It's all a bit silly really, but the good news is now we have a power and torque gauge and it makes the car all racy and bitey. However, unfortunately, the one thing that the drive modes don't change is the ride quality. This is without question, the most uncomfortable car I have ever reviewed. I took my dad along for a ride one time in this thing and he got nauseous after 3 minutes because the ride was so bone shaking. Like, I get that it's a JCW, it's supposed to be the fast track car, and sure, the stiff ride does lead to some truly remarkable handling, but for day-to-day use it is completely unacceptable. But other than the outrageously stiff ride, this is still an immensely fun car to drive. It's really fast in a straight line, it handles remarkably well through the corners, and I like too that they have still captured the spirit of what makes Minis fun. It's got the gimmicky drive modes and the big screen here in the middle, the big round headlights and the funky two-door body styling. It still fundamentally feels and drives like a Mini, even though it now has an electric motor. The other part of this car that still feels decidedly Mini is this interior. The strap on the steering wheel, the interesting woven texture across the dash, the contrast stitching on all the surfaces, and the big round central screen. It's a funky place to sit. The seats themselves adjust electronically and are heated, and getting into the back seats isn't particularly hard. The boot though is absolutely useless for anything other than a couple of shopping bags. There ain't no way you're getting a set of golf clubs back there. The build quality throughout is really quite good, and you've got plenty of places to put things, along with 2 good cup holders and a wireless charger down here. The infotainment system is a bit alternative and does definitely take a minute to get used to, but once you do, it's pretty easy to adjust the temperature on the sides or down the bottom for further climate control settings. The radio and Bluetooth work easily enough, as does the navigation, and of course you can pair up Apple CarPlay or Android Auto totally wirelessly. A few parts of it aren't quite so cohesive, like the blocky reversing camera that doesn't fill the screen, neither does the Apple CarPlay, but overall it's a pretty decent infotainment system. So, in conclusion, the new Mini Cooper JCW EV is a pretty awesome car. It looks great, it's fast, it handles amazingly well, and it's got a well-built, well-equipped, and very funky interior with lots of cool materials, drive modes, and ambient lighting fixtures. However, it's not terribly cheap, $73,000 at the time of filming, which puts it squarely in the territory of the far more substantial Civic Type R and Corolla GR. It rides way too hard for my liking and doesn't offer the most connected driving experience. But then again, I mean, what modern car really does? Plus, with a claimed range of 370 kilometers, but a realistic range of more like 250 kilometers, you won't be going particularly far on a charge either, limiting it to around town use where that harsh ride will be the most noticeable. But the good news is, if you love Mini, even though the Cooper has gone electric, it hasn't lost the spirit of the original. But what do you think about the new Mini Cooper JCW? Would you have one over the petrol JCW that's available alongside this, or over the more established range of hot hatchbacks? Let us know down in the comments, and make sure to check out some of our written reviews on drivelife.co.nz, and I'll see you again next time.